Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. On this channel, Dev Talks, we've discussed so many times the sneaky tactics that the Chinese have with regards subduing its opponent. That opponent may be an enemy, adversary, or even a competitor. The Chinese do many a things, starting from propaganda, starting from influencing the way you think, media, stealing your data, and of course, we all have heard of the COVID, and need I say more. There's another little aspect of the Chinese that we don't really talk about and which actually came to the fore when the Americans tried to block TikTok. They filed a case in America against America on TikTok being banned. So they use the system of America to get to America not to ban TikTok. That's interesting. What is that called? That is called lawfare. How they use local laws to influence and get what they want. I have someone really special with me who's done a paper, who studied this very carefully, and who's going to tell us and help us understand a little more of the Chinese lawfare tactics. He is Arpan Chakravarty, who's a fellow with the Taxila Institution. Thank you so much, Arpan, for joining me and sharing your knowledge about Chinese lawfare.
Thank you so much for having me on this platform. And I would actually start with with my presentation, if you don't
Absolutely.
mind.
Let's go. I'll put
Yeah,
this presentation up. Guys, let's
definitely.
let's let's look at this presentation. I'll ask a few questions, and after that, you guys are free to put your questions within the comments. I'm sure Arpan will be looking at it, and he could probably respond in an episode later or respond within the comments as well. So there you go. All yours.
Thank you so much. And okay, let me tell you a short story that I have, and it is actually how the concept of lawfare actually started. And actually it was started by this father of international law, who was Hugo Grotius. And in 1600s he belonged to this country called Holland. And at that point of time, in Portugal was one of the key players of spice trade in the Indian Ocean. And the Dutch at that point of time were not being allowed to participate in these trades. And there used to be the Portuguese navy which used to guard these trades. And it was a big headache for the Dutch East India Company. And that is when they actually hired Hugo Grotius. So they hired Hugo Grotius for a very specific task. They told him that, see, we want to get access to this spice trade, but it should not include the, you should bring the military into this.
Hmm.
Now, Hugo Grotius being a legal luminary, so he said that, ये अच्छा होगा कि I will devise a plan, I will devise a theory. And at that point of time, he wrote this first book called Mare Liberia. Now, what happened is he brought these concepts of laws of nation, of how sea is a common goods of all countries, and there is a freedom of navigation across the seas. So, at that point of time, this was a very new concept. We see that in contemporary times as well. In what China is doing in the places of Arunachal, in areas of Arunachal Pradesh. Similar to that, what they did is in by 1700s, this idea was circulated to everyone. When they circulated this idea to everyone, what happened is many countries started accepting it. And Hugo Grotius at that point of time, he achieved something without even firing a bullet. And that's what today what we see is lawfare. And there are various ways how we can interpret law, because nothing in law, it is always said that nothing is black and white. We always dwell in the gray. So that is how I do believe the origin of lawfare has started. And in the past as well, we have been continuously seeing this. So one question that always I have been asked about is that how different is how China interprets its laws. And that's why I always make sure that to bring this concept that rule of law and rule by law. when we dwell into this structure of what understanding we have, rule of law is something that we follow in India as well. That we have our allegiance to the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India is supreme. Nothing stands more above the Constitution of India. But in the concept of rule by law, what really happens is one party wants to accumulate power, and because of that they make laws in similar tandem. And we have already seen so many things about international law that history has seen that great powers, they always use international law. We have seen that with Spain from the year 1494 to 1648. We have seen that with France, and we have seen that with Britain. And after 1919, I do believe that it was United States who have been using this whole concept of international law to further their own political agendas. Now, why China at this point of time is developing this is because they want to bring forward their Chinese dream, the dream to uh, be at par and even more powerful than all the nations across. And this is how international law has been working, and we have been seeing this. And one of the most important aspects is that they want to bring a new international order which won't have the Western hegemony. And now, when we see the usage part, we have been seeing this regularly, literally regularly. We have been seeing this, that there has been various instances of lawfare. We saw how newspaper journalists who have been expelled. We have seen how South China arbitration. Now that we are also seeing a PLAMM, which is the militia force of the PLA army, which has been working all the way to the about the with this nine dash line, and the BRI everybody knows about. And now they are trying to operationalize the arbitration courts in specific arbitration courts, which have they are preparing their teams to learn foreign languages, learn laws, their laws, and how to bring that in line with the Chinese characteristics. They are bringing in different domestic legislations to consolidate power, different foreign relations legislations as well. And one of them is, I do believe, that changing history, because that has always been part of China's understanding that that in lawfare these two things matter more: the history part and the legality part. The history part will help you for the claims, and legality part will help you to prove the legitimacy, or legality part of it, that this is legal, this is illegal. So basically, what China with its lawfare, what they do is they try to be legitimate, basically. And we have seen different foreign relation legislations as well. We recently saw the cartographic aggressions, the salami slicing tactics that we have been seeing in Bhutan. They're trying to do that in India as well. And one of the most important aspects of lawfare also does come in debt traps, actually. You know, in debt traps, what they are doing is that they are signing with a non-disclosure agreement. Once you sign a non-disclosure agreement, you cannot share that particular contract with anybody outside the world. And this is a way how they are trying to even trying to get through with all of these laws, or get through all of these sanctions that they want, because there are specific countries which will want money. Like at this point of time, we see Pakistan, they are in debt. There are many other countries as well across the globe. We have seen that with Sri Lanka's Hambantota port. We have seen Uganda's only international airport, which is the Entebbe airport, also, which has been taken over by the Chinese because they couldn't repay their loans. So Africa and Latin America had been one of the most important aspects where we saw these lawfare strategies being implemented, because that's where China can actually bring in their money, bring in this whole under the garb of development. And they're also trying to bring legal reforms in their education. Like for example, you will have to now tell the government as to what you are teaching, and that will be corrected by the local governments. They will also make sure that there are certain changes in those in those education policies, and they will send it back to the professors as well. So these are how things are going on, and you must have already read about Xinjiang, Hong Kong. Taiwan will also be a part of lawfare very soon. Uh, and basically, their whole idea is, to create a new kind of legal order, because away from that's what, whenever you read the bare text of all their legal this thing, the acts and legislations, there is one thing is that they want to stay away from the Western hegemony. So this is what we have been continuously seeing. And in order to curb the dissent in Hong Kong, we saw yesterday that they had put a bounty of $1 million on four activists who were speakers or who want to go abroad and speak. There were certain speakers who were not allowed to go abroad and speak, and these are now becoming regular. And that is why in order to curb this, they are trying to bring in laws which can actually help them into understanding these things. And finally, I do believe that this the China's first 5-year plan of establishing rule of law, it has its own dimensions to it. Why I say that is because when you look at how they have been trying to bring this, is that they don't want the Chinese society first of all to know, and they want to stop dissent, because there has been various circumstances in the past as well wherein they have faced dissent. Even their zero COVID policy, that had faced dissent as well. So that all things can be curbed through laws. And that's why laws were very important. If you look at how Hu Jintao as well started, he wanted to bring judicial reforms in the in the Chinese state, and that is what has also been taken by our Xi Jinping. But Xi Jinping did something very different. Xi Jinping has brought this whole concept, and he has named it on him. You know, he said that it is the Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics. So under this whole umbrella, and this was one of the reports, in the reports that they had quoted, that is the Xi Jinping thought, is the Xi Jinping thought, which is, under these garbs will come the BRI, the GDI, the GSI, all these three initiatives, the three wisdom initiatives, then the domestic laws, and then finally what we see is that what they want to achieve outside of China, as they believe that this is the way how they will bring in the pillars of shared future for mankind. So which is very hypocritical in a sense, but still it's always said that lawfare in specific, it is mixed with politics, it is mixed with the power structure, and that's how countries across the globe practice it. And when we look at this particular internal dimension, what they want to achieve out of it is, at some point of time, was this that earlier in the Chinese society, corruption was very high. And because the corruption was very high, the judicial reforms were being brought in. And now what we see is that they want to bring in the judiciary with them, anything. They want to bring in more clear administrative responsibilities. In the past, we have seen so many different acts, like the Anti-Espionage Act in
Hmm.
2014. We saw the Anti-Terrorism Act in 2015. We saw the Hong Kong National Security Act in 2021. And they are every day identifying how these areas, which areas that they can bring in their bringing these kind of laws, which would consolidate power basically. So that's how things are working at this point on the internal areas, if you look at it. And when you look at how what is its ambition is, well, I believe that Xi Jinping believes in what Machiavelli would say, that it is better to be feared than to be loved. So yes, so these are the internal aspects to it, that they want. As you know, that in the past as well, we have seen that there are only two things that they focus more on, China. One is the economic development of their people, and secondly is that even though they have authoritarianism, they want to make sure that the governance part is at the top notch, even though there is corruption, which we would agree to. And that is what their concept of the rule of law and these things do come in. Finally, which the first 5-year plan of establishing rule of law, it has its internal dimensions as well.
Hmm.
Now, something around 140 countries have signed the BRI, right? The numbers can be changed. The numbers can increase and decrease. So now, what China is at this point of time planning is this: that they will establish courts. They will establish courts in these countries, which will have the rule of law with Chinese characteristics. Now, how is that possible? First of all, see, they are training their people to have international law, Chinese international law expertise. First of all, understanding what this socialist concept of law with Chinese characteristics is, and to be more fair and reasonable in these legal systems. And when you're looking into these aspects of it, one of the most important aspects which always comes out is the tribunal aspect of it. What is the mechanism to it? Just recently, I was reading the news. Latin American countries have now, decided that they will try to resolve their matters on these aspects, on these arbitrations, on these way of dispute resolution systems. Because if you look at how Chinese legal industry, Chinese legal this thing works, judiciary works, they have never been litigious society. They always have believed in this whole concept of alternate dispute resolutions. So arbitration is something that they will focus more on. However, they never participated in the South China Sea arbitration. So that is again a hypocrisy to their work. And again, these are the things how they are consolidating power. Secondly, how they are fighting against terrorism and ethnic separatism. What they call the dissent in Xinjiang as terrorism, by the way. And they don't like, and they always have been using this word that it is an internal matter of uh, of China, right? So these are the things which have been coming up, and maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, we will see more usage of these kind of laws across the globe. Over to you, Adi.
That's very interesting, I must say, because one of the things that we are seeing with the Chinese is that they are more and more applying these little tactics to kind of create find loopholes within the countries, and figure out how to kind of get their way through. And I took this example of TikTok, which was very interesting. After India banned TikTok, Donald Trump also tried to do that, and they filed a First Amendment case in the US, stating freedom of speech. And it was so rich coming out of China that they used the US laws against the US government itself to get to what they wanted.
Do you
And
know why
that's,
that happened?
hmm,
Because they have been studying the American law,
yep.
and they have been preparing. They have been doing this capacity building since so many years. What we see at this point of time is, in India we need those kind of, the lawyers who have an understanding of law, who have understanding of national security and foreign affairs as well.
Hmm.
Some institutions are working on it, however we are still lacking on that.
No, obviously there is no question. Nobody expects a country to do stuff like that. But in any case, that is China. One of the things I wanted to take up with you is that you've spoken about these countries and these ports where China would try and establish their own rule of law, or the follow of law, that as you kind of put it across, in these locations. For example, in Pakistan, in the port of Gwadar, you will have some sort of a Chinese law. And one of the things we also recognize is that Chinese are making these police stations all around the place. So this is an interesting development with regards to their lawfare practice, that they will try and control their citizens even in international countries.
That's an extraterritorial applications of the law, which has been highly condemned by Canada, highly condemned by Britain, highly condemned by even the US, because they have been seeing these things, and that's why they are going against it. However, with power comes absolute corruption, and that is what is happening at this point of time. Unless we we crack down on these things, it will still continue to happen.
That's interesting, because the biggest thing that we see with regards to China is that to find any anything and try and subvert. And that is the most important thing, कि भाई कुछ भी मिल रहा है, and find a hole somewhere and just get into it somewhere, and find a hole in terms of finding a hole within the system. It's quite an interesting prospect. Now, you've done this study, and I'm sure, if there's an audience member who would like to see this a little further, I'll be glad to, if you can share the link with me to attach it right here so that people can read about it. Of course, you've given us a nice gist. The last thing that I'd like to ask you is that there has to be a setup or a system wherein, I mean, when you look at the US, sorry, the EU, the kind of infiltration that we see from the Chinese system setups and whole lot of other things is beyond comprehension, right? You look at Canada. You spoke about Canada. Is that the Chinese have funded their elections, and you don't see a law or anything which has been passed. Like in India, you can't do that. It's a very clear thing. You can't get foreign money. If you're caught, you're going to have a hailstorm breaking onto you, because forget the law part of it. The public will never forgive you. But in non-resilient, they're probably targeting non-resilient societies of the EU, Canada, where the nationalism is not that strong, and they're able to actually infiltrate into the system. How do you see that?
Well, to be very honest, all democratic societies are at risk
Yeah.
when I look into these kind of things, because for democratic societies, we have freedom of speech, we have freedom, and a lot of freedoms that is not usually been granted in countries like China. And even you look at how their internet space is being controlled, how
Hmm.
things have been working. So they'd love to experiment these things on democratic societies and see the what kind of chaos happens. And this is also one of the tactics which even Russia had been following it. And China, let me tell you this thing very clearly. China does not do anything on as a start. It always learns from certain countries.
Yeah.
It will observe very closely as to what the other country is doing when it comes to any implementation. They don't believe in this first mover advantage. They believe in the second mover pioneering, like that they can pursue something like that. And that is what the Russians were the first who actually started doing this, and now we see the Chinese improvising on those things.
That is interesting, because we also see And that's probably the last thing I will say, that they're improvising. Yes, there is no question about it. But they'll have to kind of build this up a little further, because the world is coming to a little bit of a rise to it. And I guess till COVID came along, people didn't really
Yeah.
bother. Auntie care, whatever they're doing, let them do this. They're silly people. But today, when after COVID, people have said, yeah, they're silly people with very bad intentions. So people are looking onto this. How fast they do it and how swiftly they do it is a totally different
You
this thing.
must actually have seen how UK is cracking down on the Confucius institutes.
Yeah.
They have literally reduced the number of Confucius Institute, because apparently they were also, trying to get into anti-national activities in Britain as well. And these are things that you have to pick up, try to bring those things into structure, and then only you can use law to stop all of these activities, or else this will continue. And the democratic societies, they are always at risk, because there will always be one person who will, even though we don't know, but still be funded by them. So these things do matter a lot. And you in UK, it has been rampant, to be very honest. In recently, I think there was this MI5's report, wherein they specifically said that this person shouldn't who lived very close to the MP of UK, and that person had a very specific connect with the Chinese companies, and they give this, that please stay away from this person. So these things, they have tried to manipulate. They have tried to get into all of these places through their might of money, through their the way how they conduct their business. And this will actually grow very rampant in the years coming down the lane, because that is when, even you saw yesterday, they had made this statement that we want to bring what there was this one word which was being used by them. It was that they want to uh, sanction India.
Hmm.
Yeah, sanction and prosecute India. So you have to always look into these things, and the more faster we start getting this work on national security and law is, the faster we will understand these things. And I will definitely share the article, the work that I have been doing. And that's all.
Thank you so much, Arpan. It's a
Thank you
actually
so
thank
much.
you so much. It's something, the funny thing is, in India we don't talk about these things. I think my channel, I've been able to actually curate a lot of interest with China, and I'm glad that the viewers are now, I would say, leaving Pakistan and coming around to actually looking at China, which is the larger threat. Pakistan is good entertainment, but let me assure all the viewers, China is even more entertainment since you start understanding it. They do a lot more funny things than our friends in the West Pakistan. Arpan, thank you so much once again, and I hope
Thank you so much.
you share this presentation with me, and I can link it down, and I hope the
Definitely.
viewers can see it, read it, learn something out of it, and let's keep in touch for another future project sometime in the future. Till then, Jai Hind.
Thank you.